The ink on the divorce papers was barely dry when Claire Thompson rose from the cold leather chair in the law office. Her fingers trembled as she placed the pen down, as if the act of writing her name had drained the very life from her. She avoided looking at the man seated across the table, Ethan Pierce, the man she'd promised to love forever. His dark eyes were fixed on the tabletop, a muscle twitching in his jaw, betraying emotions he refused to show. Her vision blurred as tears welled up, the weight of finality pressing against her chest like a vice. In her purse, tucked away like a cruel secret, was the shredded remains of a positive pregnancy test. She had ripped it apart in the bathroom before their meeting, as if destroying it could erase the truth that might have changed everything, or maybe nothing at all. Their love, once a blazing fire, was now cold ash, and the child she carried would never know the warmth they once shared. "Is there anything else you need?" the lawyer asked, his voice dispassionate. Just another day's work for him. "No," Claire whispered, her voice almost breaking. She steeled herself, fingers curling around the strap of her bag. Without another word, she stood and walked out, the heels of her boots clicking against the marble floor, each step echoing with finality. Outside, the cold wind slapped her cheeks, blending with the tears she couldn't hold back any longer. She looked up at the slate-grey sky, the air tasting of salt and regret. Her hand instinctively moved to her stomach, but she dropped it quickly. "No, don't think about it now." "Claire!" His voice cut through the wind, raw and desperate. She hesitated, her heart twisting painfully in her chest. She closed her eyes and let the tears fall freely for a brief moment, before inhaling sharply, willing her legs to move. She didn't turn back. She couldn't. The last thing she heard was the muffled thud of his footsteps stopping behind her, as if he too knew that this was the end. 6 years later, Ethan stood in his kitchen, the soft morning light filtering through the curtains, casting long shadows on the floor. The house was silent, too silent. He poured coffee into his mug, his hands steady, but his heart felt hollow. The routine was familiar, almost mechanical. Wake up, work out, shower, drink coffee, go to the office. Repeat. The days bled together, into a monotonous grey. The only thing that broke the sameness of his days was the ache in his chest that never fully went away, a constant reminder of what he'd lost. He'd buried himself in work, thinking it would distract him, but it never did. Claire was gone, and so was the best part of him. He glanced at the calendar hanging on the wall. The date circled in red stared back at him. Today would have been their 10th wedding anniversary. He let out a bitter chuckle. Would have been. The past tense stung like a fresh wound. His fingers clenched around the mug's handle. A sharp knock at the door shattered his thoughts. Ethan's brow furrowed as he set the coffee down and walked toward the door. He wasn't expecting anyone. When he opened it, a man in a brown delivery uniform handed him a large padded envelope. "Mr. Pierce?" the man asked. "Yes," Ethan replied. "Sign here, please." Ethan scrawled his name quickly, took the envelope, and closed the door. He turned the package over in his hands. There was no return address. His gut clenched. Something about it felt ominous. He tore it open carefully. Inside was a single photograph and a letter. His breath caught in his throat when he saw the image. It was a little boy with tousled brown hair and bright green eyes. Claire's eyes. The boy's smile was wide and mischievous, the same kind of smile Claire used to flash at him during lazy Sunday mornings. His hands shook as he unfolded the letter. The handwriting was unmistakably Claire's, elegant and flowing but tinged with urgency. "Ethan, I know you probably hate me. Maybe you've forgotten me by now, but I need you to know something. Something I should have told you 6 years ago. This is Lucas, he's our son. I wanted to tell you, but by the time I found the courage, it was too late. I convinced myself that you were better off without me, without us. Maybe I was wrong. Lucas deserves to know his father, and I can't keep running. If you want to meet him, if you want to meet us, we'll be at Greenleaf Park this Saturday at noon. If you don't come, I'll understand. But please know that Lucas will ask about you one day, and I'll have to find a way to explain why his father didn't want to meet him. Claire." The letter slipped from his fingers, fluttering to the floor like a fallen leaf. Ethan's knees felt weak, and he stumbled backward until he hit the wall. His heart pounded in his chest, his mind spinning with disbelief, rage, and a tidal wave of regret. He ran his hand through his hair, trying to make sense of it all. A son. He had a son he'd never known about. 6 lost. 6 years he could never get back. His mind flashed back to that day in the law office, the look in Claire's eyes, the way she'd walked away without a word. The pieces began to click into place. He should have chased her down, demanded answers, fought harder, but instead he'd let her go, too consumed by his own pride and anger to see the truth. He picked up the photograph again, his eyes lingering on the boy's face. There was so much of Claire in that little smile, but he could see a hint of himself too, in the shape of the jaw, the arch of the brow. His heart swelled with a mixture of wonder and sorrow. The clock on the wall read 9:30 a.m. He had 2.5 hours to decide, 2.5 hours to change the course of his life forever. His pulse quickened. Could he do this? Could he face Claire after everything that had happened? After 6 years of silence? He took a shaky breath and clenched his fists. The thought of missing the chance to know his son was unbearable. He couldn't let fear or pride stop him this time. The wind was cool against Claire's cheeks. He sat on a worn wooden bench in Greenleaf Park. The sun was hidden behind a layer of grey clouds, the air heavy with the scent of damp earth. Lucas played a few feet away, kicking a soccer ball around, his laughter bright and unbothered. Claire's hands were ice cold, even though she had them buried in her coat pockets. She glanced at her watch. 11:58 a.m. 2 minutes. 2 minutes until hope would either blossom or shatter completely. Her heart thudded painfully, her breath shallow. What if he didn't come? Could she really handle that? A small hand tugged at her sleeve. "Mommy." Lucas's voice was soft. "Are you okay?" She forced a smile. "I'm fine, baby." Just then, the sound of hurried footsteps drew her attention. Her heart leapt into her throat. She turned her head, and there he was. Ethan stood a few feet away, his chest heaving, his eyes locked onto hers. A lifetime of emotions passed between them in a single shattering moment. "Mommy, who's that?" Lucas asked, his green eyes wide. Claire swallowed the lump in her throat, tears already falling. That's your daddy." Ethan's feet felt like they were rooted to the ground, his body unable to move as he took in the sight before him. Claire's eyes were the same, a mixture of stormy grey and emerald green, both fierce and vulnerable. But there were new lines on her face, subtle marks of time and weariness he hadn't been there to witness. His gaze shifted to the boy standing beside her, the boy who was his son. Lucas clung to Claire's sleeve, his eyes curious, yet wary. The world seemed to tilt beneath Ethan's feet, his mind struggling to process the reality of the moment. This is real, he thought. He's real. The emotions he'd bottled up over the last 6 years, guilt, anger, regret, hope, threatened to boil over. He swallowed hard, painfully dry. He took a tentative step forward, his eyes never leaving Lucas. "Hi," Ethan managed to say, his voice rough, almost broken. He didn't know how else to begin. How could a word so small bridge a gap so vast? Claire's eyes glistened with tears, but she nodded, encouraging him. "Lucas," she whispered, kneeling beside their son. "This is Ethan, your dad." Lucas blinked up at Ethan, his expression unreadable. "You're my dad?" he asked softly. The question hit Ethan like a hammer to the chest. He nodded, unable to trust his voice. "Yes," he finally rasped. "I'm your dad." Lucas stared at him for a moment longer, then tilted his head to the side, a small crease appearing between his brows. "Why didn't you come sooner?" Ethan's heart shattered. The weight of the question pressed on him like 1,000 bricks. He looked to Claire, searching for help, but her eyes were downcast, guilt etched on her face. "I didn't know," Ethan said, his voice trembling. "I didn't know about you, Lucas. If I had, I would have been here." Lucas seemed to consider this, his eyes scanning Ethan's face with surprising intensity. After a long pause, he nodded, his shoulders relaxing a little. "Okay," he said. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but it was a start. Ethan let out a shaky breath, relief washing through him. He crouched down to Lucas's level, trying to find the right words. "I want to know you."